Did Swamiji chart out any routine for sadhaks living in the ashram?
Okay. Let me tell you that I have not lived in any other ashram except that of Swamiji. Okay. So I don't know about other ashrams. Okay, but I have not experienced other ashrams in that sense. Okay, but I can tell you that Swamiji's ashram was unique. That is because I know how the other ashrams were. I heard from my friends, from my colleagues, okay, who have lived in other ashrams, and that is how I can say that Shivabalayogi ashram. You can take any ashram for that matter, but I will be talking about the Bangalore ashram. There is an ashram at Adivarapeta, there was an ashram at Dehradun, it is still there, an ashram at Dehradun, there is an ashram in Sambar Lake. So there are people who lived in all these ashrams, and Swamiji used to visit these ashrams, right? Other ashrams had just one or two people living there. So the best example to answer Vijaya Akka's question is the Bangalore ashram. And fortunately, I lived there in the Bangalore ashram for a few years. Okay, so I can talk about that. I'm saying it is unique. I will tell you that it was very different from how the other ashrams were. But that is not to say that that was wrong. Okay, I mean, it was, to us who lived at the ashram, it was beautiful. We don't want that time to be replaced. I mean, even if we had a choice to live in a different way, we would not take that choice. We enjoyed living with Swamiji, living in the ashram so much that I think I told you this earlier. My fear all the time was, what if Swamiji drives me away from the ashram? No, for any wrong that I have done, as a punishment, if he drives me away from the ashram, that's the end of it. That was my fear all the time. Okay, I had this fear, and a lot of people who lived there, I know, enjoyed their lives. They continue to live there. Okay. Now, but Vijaya, let me tell you that all those who lived at the ashram, I don't think I'll be called sadhaks in that sense. Okay. It is not that they were living there so as to able to make progress in their spiritual life. Why am I saying this? Okay. Now, given that everyone who lived at the ashram, even for a day, who lived at the ashram, who did not, was solely decided by Swamiji. Okay? What I am trying to tell you is, if a person had to live at the ashram even for a single day, he or she had to take the permission of Swamiji. Otherwise, he or she was not allowed in the ashram. That was the way the ashram was kept, and I think all ashrams were kept right until the Mahasamadhi. Okay? But in spite of having said that, I still say that all the people who are living at the ashram were not sadhaks. So let me explain that. Okay? Moreover, to answer your question as to the routine that was followed, right? I mean, it was not that the situation was the same in the ashram throughout the years, okay? Across 30 years, the same routine was followed. No, that was not the case. Things kept changing, okay? So what I am trying to refer to answer your question, is life at the ashram for the inmates of the ashram during the years 1986 to 1994. 1994 is when Swamiji took Mahasamadhi. I went to the ashram in 1983, but on occasion I had been there even in 1981 as well as in 1982. I had been at other ashrams also of Swamiji when Swamiji was there. So I select this time period of 1986 to 1994 when Swamiji took Mahasamadhi, because after that the situation changed radically, entirely it was different. So I would not take that, because I know your question is about how the ashram was, what the routine was during Swamiji's time. I know you are interested only in that. To give you an idea, there were people who would come and join the ashram, okay, after a few days, a few months, somebody else would come, somebody would leave. So this kept happening all the time, right? It's not that the same people lived throughout. There was a bunch of us who came around 1983-84. Okay? Yashoda came at that time, Anasuyaka came at that time, Madhu, another lady devotee, came at that time, Gundu Jagadish came at that time, Krishnamurti. We all came at the same time, approximately the same time, 1983 to 84. But there are others who came earlier, who left, who came later, who left. Okay? But overall, there were about 30 devotees, 30 people living in the ashram. A few of them, or a few of us, were related to Swamiji by blood, meaning his sisters and their children and their grandchildren. Okay? They also lived in the ashram along with us. They also lived like devotees, although they were relatives of Swamiji. Okay? Then there were a few individuals who were single like me, myself, Yashoda, Anasuya, Madhu. We were all single. We were unmarried, we were single. Gundu Jagadish, Krishnamurti were also single. We lived there. Then there were also families. I mentioned about Swamiji's sisters and sisters' sons and daughters, especially the sons. I mean, the daughters went away to their husbands' houses, but the sons, along with their wives and their children, they lived at the ashram. Not all of them, but a few of them lived at the ashram. Okay? So, to put the picture together, there were some individuals, singles, there were some families there, some were related to Swamiji, some were not, some were just pure devotees. Okay? And there were people of all ages. Let me tell you, when I entered the ashram in 83, the youngest child was probably 2 years old. And the oldest was probably 70 years old. Okay? So, the age was spread across the entire spectrum of 2 to 70 years. Okay? And there were men, there were women, there were unmarried men, there were unmarried men, there were married men, married women, all kinds of people were there. There were widows also in the ashram. Okay? Again, another aspect. I lived at the ashram, but I was working somewhere else. I had a job. I was working for a public sector undertaking, ITI, Indian Telephone Industries, but I lived at the ashram. I was earning my salary, but I lived at the ashram. Okay? There were others also who did the same thing, either working for some other company, some other organization, or they had their own business, like running a ration shop. Okay? So 2 people had ration shops, but they lived at the ashram. So they were earning from the ration shop, but they and their families lived at the ashram. Okay? Then the other aspect, there were students there. Of course, little children who went to school, but there were also 2 engineering students, 3 engineering students, I think. There were a couple of students who were doing their B pharmacy. Okay, so like this, it had a spectrum of people there, different kinds, different jobs, different relationships with Swamiji. We were all living there together at the ashram. Okay? Now, all those who lived at the ashram through the day were assigned different duties. The ashram did not have even a single salaried person or a paid employee. Nobody was paid a salary, not even a single person. I was earning my salary, but I was earning it from ITI, from Indian Telephone Industries, and I lived at the ashram. Because there were no employees, it was devotees. I mean, you can call them relatives and devotees or devotees. It was they who carried out all the jobs that were to be done in the ashram. Whether it was cooking, whether it was cleaning both the ashram and the temples, whether it was the puja and the decoration of the temples, whether it was keeping accounts, selling photographs, selling books. All these jobs were done by devotees at the ashram. Okay? All meals were cooked by devotees. No paid cook was there, including the meals that were prepared for the Sunday Annadanams. Okay? We used to have something like 500 people coming and eating at the ashram every Sunday evening. All that food was prepared at the ashram by devotees, either visiting devotees, devotees who came from Bangalore city, who lived in Bangalore city outside of the ashram, but they came to the ashram on Sundays and they helped in the cooking. And then there were the devotees who were in the ashram, they also participated in the cooking. Okay, here you see Gundu Jagadish, Kondaya, Chinnakiritappa, Veeraya, Timmappa. These are all devotees who are preparing the food for the Sunday Annadanam, the Sunday mass feeding. Okay? Now let me come to the actual ashram routine. Okay? I think I'll have to read it out actually. The timings were fixed for all the meals and beverages. Okay? That means the tea times and the meal times were fixed. The tea time was at 7 a.m. in the morning tea, breakfast from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m., lunch from 1 p.m. until 2 p.m., evening tea at 4 p.m., night dinner from 9 p.m. until 10 p.m. Okay? Now all this food that was required to be served for these meals and the tea had to be made by the devotees themselves, and we had to keep the time. Okay, we had to maintain the time. We cannot delay the lunch or the dinner, or for that matter the breakfast. And please mind it, a variety of breakfast was prepared. Okay, we had idli, we had dosa, we had pongal, we had inkemundi pesarattu, chitrannam. We had all these kinds of breakfast. Okay, this is two of American devotees who had come to the ashram and who were having their meal at the ashram. Okay, to begin with the routine again, a few ladies used to go and help with the temple work early in the morning. That is, performing the abhishekam to the gods. All the 6 plus 3, 9 gods were given a bath early in the morning, before sunrise I should say. After that, the rituals had to be performed. Even those were performed by devotees who lived at the ashram, but by men. So the men and women worked together to complete the temple work. Okay? So while the temple work was going on, 2 or 3 of the men came to Swamiji's room early in the morning, used to massage Swamiji, give him an oil massage, and then give him a bath. I don't know if I should call it a bath or a wash, probably, right? Because the Americans, they say you have taken a bath only if you have taken a bath in a bathtub, not otherwise. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
shower
yeah.
or a wash. Okay. So Swamiji had a bathtub in his bathroom, but then he never used that. We always used to have hot water poured on him with pots. Okay. So that was done by 2 or 3 devotees in the morning. After that, a couple of ladies used to come and clean Swamiji's rooms. Sweep Swamiji's rooms and wipe them clean. By this time, some of us would have had our tea and then breakfast time. So we all would go for breakfast. Serving meals was also done by a couple of men in the ashram on a rotation basis. That is, on Mondays, 2 devotees would serve the meal. On Tuesday, it would be another couple of devotees. Wednesday, some other couple of devotees, like that. But it was only the men who used to do the serving. And there was a rule made by Swamiji that food shall not be carried out of the dining hall. Food will be served and consumed only in the dining hall, irrespective of who you are. You could be a relative, you could be Swamiji's sister, you could be a VIP, it doesn't matter. You come to the dining hall and have the same food that is served to everybody else. Okay? And he made sure that everybody was served the same food, the same items, the same menu. It was not different for anybody at all. Okay? This is what his training was. He trained us to do that. All those of us who were living at the ashram, we were all trained to do this. Whatever is available had to be distributed to all. Okay? Morning's rice is left over, everybody gets an equal amount of it in the night. It's not that the first few get morning's rice and then the hot rice is served to people who come later on. And the timings had to be strictly followed. When we say 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. is breakfast, that's all. 10 a.m. everything will be closed. If you go at 10:30, you will not be served breakfast. Okay, and there are of course a lot of other rules. Like if you don't come to the garden to work in the garden, you will not be given food. You will not be given that meal. And this order was also strictly followed. Okay, so that should explain. This was the garden that was maintained. What you see here is a flower garden, and we also had a kitchen garden, meaning we grew vegetables in that garden. Flowers for the temples and the vegetables for the kitchen. Okay, and of course the coconut trees, even they had to be maintained. These are all devotees in those times. These pictures were taken by Tom in 1994. So devotees who lived at the ashram, they themselves brought the food brought all the ingredients from the market. It was they who cut and sliced them, who cooked them, who served them. Everything was done by the devotees themselves. Okay? Including even growing the vegetables if required. On Sundays, we all used to be busy with the Annadanam work, the cooking work for the Annadanam. And at night, the meal was served generally in the Dhyan Mandir itself, in this same hall. Okay? So after the food was served, the whole hall used to be cleaned, either swiped or washed with water. Okay? And then the next day morning, that is every Monday morning, every Sunday night we used to have an Annadanam, and every Monday morning, all those big utensils in which food was cooked for 500 people, all those utensils had to be washed by devotees who are living at the ashram. Nobody else came to wash the vessels. Okay? But then on Mondays, there was a special leave given to all the inmates. That is, after you have your breakfast, you wash the utensils, and after you wash the utensils, the rest of the day is given off to you. This is a lady who used to do most of the cooking in the kitchen. Lakshmamma. She was also related to Swamiji. This is Anasuyakka and Madhu in the kitchen. Okay. Now, in the evening, all resident devotees, that is all the devotees at the ashram, were expected to come and join the bhajans. Okay. After the bhajans, the bhajans would close with the arti at 8 o'clock. And after that, before 9 o'clock, the naivedyam, that is the food offering to the gods, had to be taken to the temple from the kitchen. And everybody has to accompany the naivedyam. The food that is taken to the gods, all the devotees who are living in the ashram, either the permanent residents or those who have come as just visitors for 2 or 3 days, even they had to accompany the naivedyam, okay, to the temple. So we all used to go to the temple, offer the food to the gods. And the funny thing, the interesting thing, we used to find it funny, was that when the naivedyam was taken from the kitchen to the temple, it had to be accompanied by a drum. So we used to beat the drum as we took the naivedyam to the temple. Okay? Then serve the food to the gods there. All of us used to be in the temple when the food was being served to the gods. Then bring that food back, the blessed food back, mix it with the rest of the food, and then start serving the food at 9 o'clock in the night. Okay? Now this naivedyam ritual had to be performed 3 times a day, every day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And everybody had to accompany it. Whoever was at the ashram at that time had to leave whatever work he or she is doing and had to accompany the naivedyam to the temple. Okay? Now, in addition to all this, every evening a couple of ladies used to perform the Kumkum Puja and also chant the Lalita Sahasranamam to the goddess Devi in the temple. All the 3 goddesses. Okay? So this is the routine, Vijaya, that we used to follow at the ashram. And as I mentioned earlier, this was the routine that was followed from about 1986 to 1994. Okay? If you have any specific question about this, then I can take that.
Thank you, Anna. I think lot of things and information, but it is scary. It's so hard. It sounds very hard. Life in the ashram. I don't know if today's generation will be able to forego all this hardship and feel comfortable living there.
No, ma, see, as I told you, no employees. Nobody was paid a salary to do any work in the ashram. Okay? Except the construction workers. At times, we had to do even the construction work, including the ladies. Okay? I mean, for example, in those days we had a different dining hall. I mean, under the staircase. Okay? We didn't have a separate dining hall. So we were using the space under the staircase for dining. And because that was not paved, there was no concrete put there, Swamiji made the ladies lay the concrete there so that it is clean, right? I mean, even when it rains, it can be swept easily, and the water can be cleared, and we can sit there and then have the meal. That is the reason Swamiji got concrete laid in the dining hall, I mean, in that old dining hall, but that was also done by the ladies of the ashram. Understand? So that is how life used to be in the ashram.
Great, Anna. You all really are great to be able
Okay.
to live in such hard ship
But
and
again, let me repeat, we enjoyed it. We enjoyed every moment of it, but because of
yeah,
Swamiji. Okay?
Swamiji. Yeah,
I
Swamiji
mean,
is the
everything that we did it with an attitude that we were serving Swamiji or serving Swamiji's
mm,
devotees, right? So,
yeah.
service attitude was there constantly throughout the day, so long as we worked there. So, whoever was working there was doing service. So, that gave us that satisfaction, okay? And so, we didn't mind struggling. I mean, to tell you frankly and honestly, probably I was the one who did the least of the work, okay, at the ashram, because most of the time I used to away. I mean, during the day, during the weekdays, I used to away. I used to be away at my company, so I used to do my company work. Only during the weekends, Sundays, I used to be at the ashram. Of course, in the evenings, I used to be at the ashram. So the evening routine and the Sunday routine I used to follow, and then I volunteered to do the serving of the meals on Sunday. So Sunday breakfast and lunch I used to serve. Okay, I I took that upon myself because I felt a little guilty that I was not doing enough work in the ashram. Okay,